what's up guys, it's Asian Power. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. In today's video, we are diving deep into the life of Caustic, analyzing everything we can about his life and figuring out what his personality is. And I'm super excited for this one because, as we know, Caustic is all into death. He is super into that. So it adds a kind of interesting aspect to his personality. But let's go ahead and dive first into his bio. Again, all this information is going to be on the main EA website for Apex Legends, and this is what it says about Caustic. Before there was Caustic, a scientist named Alexander Knox worked at the Humbert Labs, the frontier's leading manufacturer in pesticide gases. With a glut of pesticides needed to protect the growing frontier colony's crops, Humbert Labs was constantly on the hunt for better and stronger formulas. Knox was one of their brightest scientists and worked day and night developing new gases. But to make sure that they worked, he needed to test them on more than just inert tissue. He needed something living. As he toiled in secret, Knox began to see the beauty in his creations and their ability to destroy anything they touched. But the head of Humbert Labs soon discovered his gruesome experiments, and their confrontation ended with the lab in flames and its chief dead. Today, Knox is missing and presumed dead. Caustic, meanwhile, now finds new test subjects in the Apex games, where he puts his gaseous creations to work and observes their effects in great interest. There's a lot there. Actually, there's a whole lot more. I'm going to throw up on the screen now the death certificate of Alexander Knox and really what it says a little bit more about Caustic. So, as we know, Caustic was a scientist who was deciding to test on humans to expand his knowledge and to kind of feed this curiosity that he has. In this death certificate, it talks about how the lab was caught on fire, that everything burned down to the ground, but his DNA, Knox's that is, his DNA was found at the crime scene, and there was a body so burned it was impossible to tell who that person actually was, but the DNA matched that of Alexander Knox, so that he was presumed dead. As we know, that Dr. Franklin Hubbard, who was the chief of this lab, really died in this accident and is no longer with us. There's a lot to unpack with this, the bio, and I'm super excited to get into it. But right off the bat, with all the things that we know about Caustic, he loves science. And he does anything in the name of science, and that could be kind of a bad thing. It takes it to the extreme, and right off the bat with my knowledge is Caustic, no doubt, is a sociopath. Let's dive into what a sociopath is and how that can relate and make that connection with Caustic. So some of the traits of a sociopath is that they are manipulative, cunning, have superficial charm. They have grandiose of themselves, meaning that they feel a lot greater about themselves than some other people may feel. They feel like they're the smartest, the strongest, the fastest. They just feel like they are the absolute best and that everybody else is inferior. And that's the key point. You can think great about yourself, but having that grandiose of yourself is thinking so much worse and lower about everyone else. Pathological lying, lack of remorse, shame, or guilt, and need for stimulation. The need for stimulation obviously comes from visually watching and seeing something die in the name of science, in the study, in the data. That's what Knox loves about his line of work. And a lot of you guys might be asking, well, how do we know what's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath? Most people want to automatically assume, psychopath is a killer who has no remorse. The biggest thing that I've learned between a sociopath and a psychopath is the two beginning words. Socio is social, psych is the brain. So a psychopath is someone who is believed to have been born with that ineligibility to feel remorse, guilt, shame, those kind of emotions that most everybody feels. A sociopath is something that has been learned. It's socialized into the person so that it's learned through their interactions with their environment. So that's why I feel that Caustic is more of a sociopath, because it wasn't until he started getting into these tests in the lab that he developed and learned his love of science and what extreme measures he was willing to go to in the name of science to complete these experiments and do these tests. So now I want to dive a little bit deeper into the actual voice lines that Caustic says in game to help further back this sociopath mind that is Caustic. And we can talk about, the lack of remorse and everything, and you'll definitely feel and see that with each voice line that we go over. So here are some of the voice lines that I wanted to go over to kind of help highlight what I was talking about before. So he says, "Don't rush your end. I linger on those final moments." That's that kind of stimulation that the sociopath needs to be filled within themselves. He loves to see his test subjects suffer and slowly die. He gets so much enjoyment as the process is slow and very painful, I assume. The next one is, "The kill is more important than the prize." With this one, we know that Caustic receives a lot more pleasure out of the action of killing somebody, rather than winning the Apex games. Unlike Mirage or anybody else like that, he loves to see his subjects, his competitors, die. So that is very sinister and a great example of a sociopath. Next up is, "You and I are not equals." Before I go on to that one, this next quote is to go alongside of that as well. "I don't concern myself with the ambitions of insects." This is the great example of the grandiose of Caustic. He feels this particular way about himself and those around him. One, you and him are not equals. He is way above you, and he doesn't concern himself with everyone else because he's so much superior. And that's just another one of those examples of how he feels and how he views the world around him. Next up, the last quote that I'm going to go over right now is, "Without pain, the body suffers in silence, omitting the entertainment." So the key point is, pain is the entertainment for Caustic. He loves to watch his subjects suffer, die, and he enjoys that. That's what gets him off. A lot of the sociopaths and psychopaths need a release, and a lot of that is from killing or... Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every single sociopath has to be a killer. That's not the case. I'm just talking in the case of Caustic and the attributes that we see him portray as the character in Apex Legends. Just want to make that for sure clear, because that's definitely not the case. Not every single sociopath is a killer. But on to Caustic, we know that he just relishes in the intelligence that he gains in the Apex games, and a lot of that deals with death and causing pain upon the other players. All in all, he relishes in this. This is his forte. He loves it. And all of the attributes that we talked about today are reasons to believe that he is a full-blown sociopath. Again, the sociopath is something that is learned. It is social. So that is why I believe that he is this way. Alright, so that was the main things that I wanted to focus on with Caustic, is that he has this pervasive mental illness that is being a sociopath. That was the big thing that I wanted to focus on. But just to kind of be consistent with the first video with Mirage, I want to give you guys Myers-Briggs test for Caustic. Alright, and just briefly I'll go over everything and tell you why. So he definitely is an introvert because he likes to work alone and in small groups, or prefers to be more of a deliberate pace and likes to focus on one task at a time. Him being a sociopath, they don't really work well with others. That's pretty self-explanatory. Next up is sensors. These people are realistic and who like to focus on the facts and details. He's a scientist. That's exactly who he is. He is logical and factual. Next up is he is a thinker. These people tend to make decisions using logical analysis, objectively weigh pros and cons, and value honest consistency and fairness. The main part is that he is logical and analytical. We know that because That's who he is. That's the job he has as a scientist. And lastly, this one was a little bit of a different pull. I chose perceiver because perceivers prefer to keep their options open, like to be able to act spontaneously, and like to be flexible with making plans. And I'll explain why I chose this in just a second. Judgers, which was the other option, they tend to be more organized, prepared, like to make and stick to plans, and are comfortable following most rules. This one, he's a little bit more of a perceiver, I believe. Obviously, he's going to be right in the middle, about 50% between judgers and perceivers, because he likes to be organized, prepared. The only thing is he's not comfortable following rules. That's why he was breaking off from the lab. That's why he killed the director, is because he didn't want to follow the rules. He wanted to do his own thing. And that's why he feel like he's more of a perceiver, because he liked to keep his options open, to be able to do those things that he really, really desired. And it was something that he was flexible in doing and changing from the original path that he was on. So that's why I feel like he's just barely over that 50% threshold for a perceiver. If you guys agree, let me know down in the comment section below. If you don't, let me know as well. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Let me know who you guys want me to focus on next time as well. Subscribe if you guys are brand new. And also go down and follow me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Asian8Power. I will leave a link down in the description below. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.